All right, so we've gone ahead and finished up with our previous assignment here. So in real life, I would have cleaned up the edges here as well to kind of encapsulate everything into our main canvas, but this is basically where we're at right now. Now, the next thing we want to do is to learn a new technique. Now, the new technique that we're going to learn is talking about 1 and 2 point perspective. We're going to work on this a little bit, and these will be kind of side projects that we'll later add into our actual continuation assignment. So, to summarize, whenever you're drawing anything, right, doesn't matter how complicated it is, whenever you're drawing anything, it always boils down to either a circle, a square, or a triangle. Those are our three main shapes, okay? And if you can draw those three main shapes, you can draw anything. So for example, this glue stick here is clearly a cylinder, but when you look at it in 2 dimensions, it's actually a rectangle, right? Just big and tall and flat, easy. Now, what do you do if you want to draw something in 3D? Well, then you have to leave shapes alone because those are only 2D. And then we're gonna split these from 3 into 5. So we can take our circle, and a 3-dimensional circle becomes a sphere. We can take in between a circle and a square and get a cylinder. So it's square on the sides, but an oval on the top and the bottom. We can take just a square as it is and pull that out into the 3rd dimension, and you get yourself a cube. And then finally, we can take a triangle and pull that out into either a triangular base with a pyramid on top, or we can take that triangle and pull it from a triangle with a circle on the bottom, and that becomes a cone. Technically speaking, yes, you can also make a triangle that has a square on the bottom, but that's just also a pyramid. So they're kind of the same. Okay, so we've gone from 3 2-dimensional shapes to 5 3-dimensional shapes, right? Pretty easy. Now, as you're practicing these, and we're going to practice in class as well, we want to think about how we can stack them, almost like Legos or Minecraft blocks, something like that. So you're going to look around your house and find one single object that is important to you. Anything that's important. It can be extremely complicated. It can be really boring. I would suggest picking something other than like a rectangle. This is my son's puzzle. This would be really boring to draw. It's just a big cube, right? Pick something with some dynamic ability. It doesn't have to be crazy and overly complicated, but like, for example, like this paint bottle would work, right? Trying to get the detail of that cap, the roundness of the top, that's a pretty good, simple object to draw. But you want to find some object in your house that has some level of detail to it. We're going to work on drawing that object in 3D. Then we're going to cut it out and actually glue it somewhere on our drawing. And it might hang off the side or something, that's okay. So for the sake of argument, I'm going to go ahead and rip my paper here. And I'm going to go ahead and draw this paint bottle. That's going to be my object. I paint for fun. I do not use the dollar store acrylic, but I do paint. So that's what I'm going to use. So if I was going to design this, I want to break it down into those simple 5 3-dimensional forms. And if it helps, you can actually do this thinking in 2D first, kind of baby steps, right? So initially, right, let's see, we could say that it does not need to be 1-to-1. Actually, I won't do it that way. I'll do it this way. So I'm going to draw this a little bit larger just to show the idea. So starting off, I've got kind of the base of my bottle here, and that is, again, a cylinder, but in 2D, it's a rectangle. So let's just draw very loosely a rectangle. Okay, something like that. Once we've done that, then I want to start working my way up the object to the next clear division in shape and form. So now I've got this curvature here, which is kind of rounded, and I could freehand it, or I could stick to that 2 dimensions and just build it. right? So draw right through your object. Even though I know I'm gonna erase this later, who cares? Draw it anyway. Okay, that works pretty well. Now I can use a thing called comparative measurement. Look at, if I take these lines here, look at the gap between. So I've got 1, 2, almost looks like it should come, let's do this here. Kind of imagine a line right down the middle. So you can kind of see the space, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So I've got basically if I divide this into fourths, I've got the 2 in the middle, that's about the length of the cap, right? As far as the height goes, I could see, let's say this. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the bottle is 5 caps tall, okay? So 5, 4. So let's do a little bit of math. We'll take this straight up here and divide it into fourths. Something like that. So I know the cap is somewhere in here, okay? And then let's divide the bottle into fourths as well, and I'll add one of those on top for the cap's height. Oops, that's not right. So there's that, divide that in half. There we go. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So with using very rough rudimentary measurements, I'm able to get a block of where the cap is, right? So at this point, this works for my paint bottle, but it's very flat, it's very two-dimensional. So now I want to inflate this into 3D, and we're gonna do the exact same thing we just did a moment ago. We're gonna take our circles and make them into spheres and cylinders. Take our cubes and make those into cylinders and cubes, and I don't really think we have any triangles, but you get the idea. So let's check it out. When you're drawing cylinders, you're always gonna have to either see the top or not see the top. You'll see the bottom. You can't see the bottom and the top at the same time. It will break physics. You'll be out floating in the matrix somewhere. So let's just say that I'm looking downwards at this object so I can see the top, can't see the bottom. So I'm gonna take my square that I've got here. I'm just gonna draw kind of an oval shape. How much this is tilted determines how much I see. If I'm looking straight down, it's just a circle. As it tilts away from me, it becomes more and more of an oval shape. So in my case, I'm gonna hold it right about here, which to my eye looks like about that much. To your eye, it might be a little different. Once you've got that oval, just copy and paste it down here. Same oval, same one. Okay. Now again, right now I can see the top and the bottom. I don't want that, so I'm just gonna erase this inner line, and that lets me see the top, but not the bottom. Already kind of looks real, doesn't it? Okay, so let's keep going. I've got this sphere right here. That becomes a three-dimensional sphere, kind of morphs into the sides of my cylinder. Same thing, let's take that oval from before, let's plunk it down here on the bottom. A little bit bigger, but same general angle. And again, get rid of the inside, just like that. That's gonna help it feel pretty 3D. I don't know if you can tell, there's a little scoop right here where the plastic connects to the bottle, or to the neck of the bottle. So I'm just gonna freehand that. And pretty quickly I get something that feels pretty three-dimensional. There's lots and lots of detail here, which you can spend a lot of time on. And again, when you're stuck, take it back to 2 dimensions. Don't be afraid to draw right through your object. You can always erase. Okay, I'm gonna get that cap on there real quick. And then I've actually got a little bit of texture here as well, so I'm going to work that in. It does not need to be photorealistic, but it should definitely look like the object that you're drawing. We're going to have a lot of time to work on this project. This is kind of like a little side note. So we're going to actually have 2 weeks to work on this assignment. So I will definitely be helping you in class. Okay. Feels pretty good. Now, the last thing to think about is your three-dimensionality. So there's such a thing as a light source. So in this case, my light is coming in this direction. So this side of my paint bottle is well highlighted, and this side is in shadow. Instead of just coloring it willy-nilly, you have a choice. You can choose to use your pencil or your charcoal and add some shadow and shading, or if you want, you can go back to your old friend watercolor and paint your values. You can do either one, but you do want to add some value to your object. Think about where that light source is coming from, how it will hit the side of your object, and how that light will bend around the three-dimensional areas. Again, this is why we're going to spend so much time spending 2 weeks on this assignment, so you have plenty of time for me to help you in class. And when you're shading, think about what's called the contour. The contour is not a makeup term. The contour is how lines bend around your object. So in this case, I could draw those ovals all the way. And if I had X-ray vision, my cylinder would look a lot like that, right? If you ever did this when you were a kid, maybe, you kind of draw like the outline of your hand. Did you ever do this? Draw like the outline of your hand. And then when you were done, to make it look real, you would draw like a straight line and then bump it up, kind of like that. Did you ever do that? Maybe, I don't know. But you would do that all over, and that would make it feel like a three-dimensional hand. That's contour lines. So you've got this object. Take your time, add a little bit of blending or shading. You can do watercolors, you can use your pencil. And whenever you're all done, we're gonna cut this out with scissors or your X-Acto blade and physically glue it onto your finished piece. Let's give it a try.